15r minus 27. And we want to find the common factors. Well, factors for 15 we know are what? Or when we say factors, we mean like numbers that multiply to give us 15.
3 and 5.
3 and 5. Okay, and then factors for 27, we could say that that's 3 and what else? 9, right. So we can say that 3 is a common factor for both terms. So we factor the 3 out, and so what's left? Factor 3 from 15, that leaves us with what? 5r minus 9. Okay, and that's our answer. All right, questions with that? All right, well, what about something like this? Where we have 9 z to the 4th minus 81z. All right, what would be the greatest common factor?
9z.
Okay, definitely a z. Yeah, 9, right, and the z. Good. Because if we just factored out the 9, or even just 3, we didn't factor high enough, right? And that's the biggest problem that students have with factoring out the greatest common factors. They don't factor high enough. So you have to make sure that you factor out all the common factors. So we factor out 9z out of 9z to the 4th, and that leaves us with z to the what? 3rd minus 9. Good. And that's our answer. All right. Questions with that? So if we were just to distribute this 9z back in, we should get what we started with. Okay, and that's the whole idea. All right, questions with that? All right, well, try this. Here we have 28r to the 4th s, and put these little marks here so it's not confused with a 5 squared, plus 7r cubed s minus 35r to the 4th s cubed. All right, factor out the greatest common factor from that. Okay, let's start with the coefficient. It's always best to start with the lowest coefficient, which is 7, right? And we want to see, can 7 factor, is 7 a factor of 28? Yeah, 7 times 4 is 28, right? So we can say 7 times 4. And 35, well, that's 7 times 5, right? So So we know 7 is a factor. It has to be something that can be factored out of all 3. Now the coefficients, and a trick that you can use that tends to help is you look at, first let's look at the r's. Look for the lowest exponent for the r's, and that's your greatest common factor. Okay? So the lowest exponent for the 4's, or for the r's, would be what? 3. So we know we can factor out an r cubed. Okay, now what about the s's? What is the lowest common, or the greatest common factor for the s's? Yeah, s to the first, right? That's the lowest exponent for the s's. Alright, so we figure if we factor out 7r cubed s. So we factor out 7r cubed s from the first term, right? And that gives us 4r s. Alright, questions with that? Plus. So now we factor out 7r cubed s from 7r cubed s, and what does that leave us with? 1. That's right. Very good. 1. Minus 7 factored out of 35 is 5. R cubed factored out of r to the 4th, that leaves us with r to the what? Right, just r to the first, or just r. And s to what power? Second. Right, s to the second power. So if you were to distribute the 7r cubed s back in, you should get what you started with. Okay, so that's your check. So that's why 1 has to be in there, because 7 would be like 7 times 1, right? So even though you factor the 7 out, it's like 7 divided by 7, right, is 1. Okay, so any questions with that? All right, good. Okay, so that's our factoring our greatest common factors. Now let's say we want to factor our trinomials. And let's say that we have here x squared minus 12x plus 35. First thing you always want, you want to get into the habit of checking to see if there's a greatest common factor, which there isn't. So we put our parentheses, put our variables, x and x. We put in our signs next, which we look at the c term, right? That means our signs are going to be the same, or are they going to be opposite? They're the same, right. Are they going to be 2 pluses or 2 minuses?
Negative.
2 minuses, right, because our middle term tells us that. So now off to the side, we put in our factor table. And we always want to use 1 and 35. 2 won't work, right? But we have 5 and 7. So in your factor table, you always want to start 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, going down the line like that in a row, and that helps to make sure you get all the factors. Well, our factors here, this is probably jumping right out at you. Our factors here are going to be what? From our factor table to go in here and here. 5 and 7, right? And so we know that if we check it, right, x times x is x squared, x times negative 7 is negative 7x, negative 5 times x is minus 5x, negative 5 times negative 7 is plus 35, and so we get x squared minus 12x plus 35, and it checks. Okay, well, the first 2 and the last 2 are always going to give you your first term and the last term. It's the middle. In other words, if we use 1 and 35, you know, that would also give you 35 here. But it's the middle term that has to come out right. And there's only one set of factors that will give you that middle term. So what I tell students to do is, if you don't do anything else, check your 2 outer and your 2 inner to make sure that you get that middle term to come out right. If you just do that, okay, and you can do that mentally in your head, you've got to get that middle term to work to come out right. Even if the signs are off, you won't get that middle term. So it's really important that you check it. All right, any questions with that? Okay. All right, try this. X squared plus 8x plus 15. Put in your parentheses, put in your x's, your variables, put in your signs, and put in your factors for 15. All right, try that. Okay, our signs, what are they going to be? Positive, right? 2 pluses. Because our C term is a plus, they're the same. Our middle term is a plus, so they have to be 2 pluses. Our factor table tells us this. Also, this tells us that our factors are going to add, right? So that can only be what set of factors? 3 and 5. And whether you put it as x plus 3 here and x plus 5, or x plus 5 here and x plus 3, that doesn't matter. Okay? All right. Questions with that? Let's check it. X times 5 is plus 5x. And 3 times x is plus 3x. That gives us our plus 8x. That's a plus 8x that it checks. Okay? Always check your factoring. All right? Questions with that? All right. Let's try this. Y squared plus 18y plus 32. Okay, we're going to put in our parentheses. We know we don't have a greatest common factor here, right? We have 2 is a common factor, 2 is a factor 2, but not in the first one, right? So we can't factor out a greatest common factor. Alright, so we're going to put in our y's, right? We know it's going to be plus and plus. But we're not so sure about our factors. So we put in our factor table. 1 and 32, 2 and 18, 3 won't work, right? 4, 8 times 4, that's 32, so that's 4 and 8, 8 and 4, 5 won't work, 6 won't work. So, are these factors, are they going to add or subtract to give us, are these factors here, are they going to add or subtract to give us our middle term? Add, right? Very good, because it's plus here, right? Our signs are the same. They're going to add. So that really narrows down our possibilities, right? Our trial and error. So what two factors will add, or this should be 2 and 16 here, not 2 and 18. It should be 2 and 16. Okay, so what two set of factors will add to give us 18? 2 and 16. So you see it really narrows down, knowing that you either have to add or subtract, it really narrows down pretty quickly to the set of factors, your trial and error. It really, not much trial and error when you can do that. Well, let's check it. We've got plus 16y and plus 2y. That gives us our plus 18y, and that's what we need, and that checks. Okay? Questions with that? Okay. Well, how about something like this? A squared plus 6a minus 7. All right, try that one. Well, factors of 7 is only can be 1 and 7, right? And so 7, anytime you see the number in 1, that's considered a prime number. But in our A's, how about our signs? What are they? Plus and a minus, right? Signs are opposite because our C term is a negative. So, what happens if we put 1 and a 7 like that? Is that good?
No.
It's not good. Why is that not good?
Because the 1 needs to be minus.
The 1 needs to be a minus, right? And the 7 needs to be a plus. That's right. Why?
I don't know. I just know it's right.
You're right. But there's a reason.
There'll be a negative 6a.
That's right, because it won't check. Because this is going to be minus 7a, and this will be plus 1a, and that'll give us a minus 6a, and we don't want a minus 6a, we need a plus 6a, right? So, if everything works out except for the signs, basically all you got to do is just change the signs, and then try it again. And so now your 7 is going to be a plus, your a is going to be a minus, and your 6 is going to be a plus, and now it checks. Okay, so if everything works, the numbers work out. The only thing that doesn't is the signs. It's easiest just to switch the signs and double check it.